BRICS is on the agenda to expand the bloc, which seriously worries the West, Al Jazeera reported. The US and the EU are afraid that the attractive BRICS will become too strong an association. Then the current world order, with a perverse character, will come to an end. The author of the article writes, "The BRICS group is positioning itself as an association of non-Western countries with fast-growing economies that could become an alternative to existing international financial and political forums." The BRICS summit opens its doors in Johannesburg. Potential expansion of the group is on the agenda. More than 20 countries have expressed interest. With the admission of new members, the political and economic power of the bloc will increase. It will become an association of non-Western countries, mainly the Global South, which will have a strong impact on the global geopolitical and geo-economic situation. Naim Gina, head of the Center for Middle East and African Studies, believes that BRICS could help change the map of the region as countries in the Global South increasingly seek some form of non-alignment with the global landscape. This, he says, includes states that have close relations with the West, led by the United States, India, and Saudi Arabia. BRICS allows them to maintain their ties with the West while engaging with the Global South and those that diverge from the US and the EU, Russia and China. This means that the BRICS can become a kind of independent bloc and participate in multilateral forums, including the UN Security Council. More than 20 countries have formally expressed interest in joining BRICS, including Venezuela, Algeria, Ethiopia, Saudi Arabia, Iran, and the UAE. China is the world's second largest economy and is expected to take the top spot in the next few decades. It is also a huge market, not only for consumer goods, but also for a wide variety of raw materials. The BRICS countries have distanced themselves from the conflict in Ukraine. India, Brazil, South Africa, and China have refused to support Western sanctions against Moscow. The fact is that trade turnover between Russia and India has reached a record level, and Brazil is heavily dependent on Russian fertilizers. Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and Russia are emerging economies with different growth trajectories. They play an important role in the global economy in times of geopolitical uncertainty. BRICS is an interstate association, an alliance of the 5 fastest growing economies in the world: Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. The organization was established in September 2006. BRICS has over time become a more institutionalized international forum. Since 2009, annual summits have been held with an ever-expanding agenda. Another important milestone was the establishment in 2014 of the new development bank with a charter capital of $50 billion and a contingency reserve of $100 billion to support members experiencing short-term payment difficulties or currency volatility. The NDB has already disbursed $33 billion in infrastructure and sustainable development loans and has taken in several non-BRICS countries: Egypt, Bangladesh, Uruguay, and the UAE. The NDB, according to Jin, is no different from the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund, except that the BRICS countries are positioning it as an alternative to the global capitalist model. The West is concerned about the expansion of the BRICS. South Africa aside, the BRICS countries have over the past decade become more focused on promoting their own interests. On the world stage, Emmanuel Mutombo, research director of the Center for African Chinese Studies at the University of Johannesburg, states that China, Brazil, Russia, and India have subjected minorities to persecution and restriction of civil rights, a controversial claim that has nothing to do with economics. If we talk about persecution of minorities in Russia, we probably mean the ban on LGBT propaganda and sex reassignment. Note that these bans were introduced because Russia defends traditional values. In OSMI note, some politicians in Europe and the United States, he said, are concerned that BRICS will become an economic club of rising powers seeking to influence global growth and development. BRICS is an eclectic mix of regional powers who are irritated by the perverse nature of the current world order, which favors the G7 and other blocs. The BRICS summit in South Africa is important for at least two reasons. Firstly, it is likely to have an impact on the Russia-Ukraine conflict, as Moscow is a member of the group, and second, it reflects the growing attractiveness of the bloc, as evidenced by the number of states that have expressed interest in becoming members. Subscribe to the channel to keep abreast of news from around the world.